a very uncomfortable discussion I believe our people in South Africa don't want to have. The situation that is happening now, the protest and the possibility of a civil war in Mozambique, because the people of Mozambique, they're not happy with their government. And we know by history that people of Mozambique have always came to South Africa, whether illegally or legally so, because the borders are dividing Mozambique and South Africa. Outside of just the gate, there's no fences. So there's a possibility with all of everything happening in Mozambique, many of those people might come here. Some might come illegally, some might come seeking for asylums or seeking for government to provide concentration camps for them. You remember when people of Zimbabwe were unhappy with the government of Zimbabwe, they started flocking here because the borders are not intact. But for you to understand what's happening that side in Mozambique, can you listen to this so you can understand?
On the ground, we are joined by Amnesty International's Sidia Chisungo. Good to have you, and thank you very much for your time, Sidia. What are you learning around how far Podemo is willing to go to change the outcomes of these elections, which they believe were rigged?
So basically, just based on what we have been documenting and also hearing from civil society in Mozambique, there is a huge fear that the situation will only escalate as people have the impression that the government is not listening to their concerns. And at this moment, there are many different layers of what is really leading people to the streets. It all started not only because of the lack of transparency that civil society and opposition have been mentioning during this election, but also how police has been responding to those who decide to go on the streets and protest, specifically related to the 21st of October, when people wanted the only thing they wanted was to just pay kind of like a tribute to the lawyer and also the spokesperson of Podemos that were killed early on the 18th of October. Since that time, everything has escalated. The way police has been responding is with violence, and right now we are observing that protesters are also retaliating, and we have seen the same situations not only in Maputo but all over the country, where police stations have also been targeted moments after, for example, a police officer shot a protester. So right now the tensions are very high, and the biggest concern is the way the government has been communicating. And one of the things, for example, that we have noticed is that even under all this tension, children, for example, are still expected to go to schools. Schools are still having their doors open to have children going to school. And as we saw, for example, yesterday, one of the children around Magwanini in Maputo was killed because the way everything is being handled by the government of Mozambique, it's a little bit concerning. Let's put it like very concerning, to be honest. And civil society, just even today, Mozambican Bar Association was giving a press and saying that there is a need for a national dialogue, and the president should have called this. But the fact that to this point, there is no dialogue that has been called, and tomorrow people are expected to go to the streets, and the way police have been responding, it puts doubts whether the safety of protesters will be observed tomorrow. That's why, as Amnesty, we keep calling on authorities to stop the crackdown on protesters and also release all the protesters that have been arbitrarily arrested. And also, one of our biggest fears for tomorrow is that, just as it has been happening in the past few days, internet can also be down tomorrow. So we also call on authorities to keep the internet on so that people can have access to information.
Yeah. Let's talk about SADC. What is their official position on what is happening in Mozambique? Are they seized with this particular matter? What is the role that they can possibly play, or is it limited, if any, at all?
So at this point, everyone has a role. Everyone has to be able to call on the government of Mozambique, on the authorities, and based on evidence. And we have seen people being killed inside of their houses, sitting, and they were not even demonstrating. They were not on the streets. They were not doing anything. So it's everyone's responsibility at this point to ask and demand authorities to respect people's rights. That's not a situation of whether people can or not, if SADC, if the AU can or not. Everyone has to call on Mozambican authorities to respect the right of protesters and stop the crackdown on protesters. And all these voices in Mozambique now that are raising, people have the right to express themselves in a peaceful way, and all this have to be respected. If the government of Mozambique, based on the evidence that have been collected by civil society and different organizations internationally, just like us as well, is not listening, then we have to add more voices to this. Of course, SADC has to say something. The African Union has to say something. The whole international community has to say something before something even worse happens. And tomorrow, there is a big fear. So many voices should join the call for the end on crackdown on protesters, because as we have seen, it seems like people are not willing to give up on the idea that they want transparency and they want their rights to be respected in Mozambique.
How was really right? That was just an explanation for you to understand what is happening in Mozambique. Why are people in Mozambique angry? And all of those things. They're not happy with the current administration of the new government there in Mozambique, and they believe the elections were rigged. This thing is also spreading, is even went to Maputo. They are also protesting the civil wars and things like that. And these two countries, they are nearby our country. And last time I checked through research, the borders dividing our country and those two countries were destroyed. That's why you check everywhere you go, there's always illegal immigrants, illegal foreigners who are coming from Mozambique, coming from Maputo, because there's free pass for them. They don't even have to go by the gate of the border. They can jump through the thingies, the bushes. So I just want to bring awareness, to everyone that with all of everything that's happening in those countries, you must expect an outcry from people of Mozambique, people of Maputo, coming to seek for asylum, because maybe they are running away from the evil situations in their countries. I'm not trying to promote them coming here. I'm saying you must expect something like that to happen in the future, because it's easy to predict by now, because we've seen it before in Zimbabwe, when the Zimbabwean government rigged elections and people of Zimbabwe, they started flocking to South Africa, So, yeah, it's just to bring about awareness, just to make people aware of the situation happening next door, because it has been reported too that there is no network that side in Mozambique. So many of the things happening there are not going to be documented. People are not going to be taking videos of them striking, taking videos of police hitting civilians. So don't expect to see many videos of what is happening that side, because the network and the internet has been shut down that side. But at least there's people, there's news outlets, SABC, Newsroom Africa. They're trying to reach out, trying to understand what's happening over that side. Me, I'm only concerned because these two countries, they're closer to our borders. And there's been past research that shows that majority of illegal immigrants who come here in South Africa is Zimbabweans, Mozambicans, and people from Maputo. So with everything happening in their countries, it will also affect us, because the borders between their country and our country, they're fallen. There's no fences, you see. So just to bring awareness for people, don't be shocked when you start seeing a flock of people from that side. And our government right now is busy in the borders, the border management agencies, they're busy in the borders, patrolling at the borders, trying to make sure there's no illegal activities happening, trying to check the trucks, there's no illegal trucks coming with illegal people inside the trucks. They're patrolling, they're doing as much as they can. But what about the other side, outside the gate of the border, where there is no fences, where there is no walls? What about there? But it is what it is. Thank you very much.